Hey, welcome back to another Sound of the Underground review, where I review techno music, dance music, trance, drum and bass, all the different types of genres within the EDM universe. And today we're going to be reviewing Robert Hood's Mirror Man, which he put out in 2020. So I wrote this, I wrote a little review and I'm going to read it to you. So here we go. So through a looking glass darkly, we come across Robert Hood's most recent album from 2020 called Mirror Man. As if Alice from Wonderland came across a pathway and chose the lesser path taken. Likewise, Mr. Hood composed some amazing techno tracks that surely will stand the test of time. Mr. Hood himself was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and is one-third of the late 80s and early 90s techno group Underground Resistance, with also Mad Mike Banks and Jeff Mills. Since then, they have split and gone their separate ways, Jeff Mills and Robert Hood releasing their own music on their own. Mad Mike Banks was the only one left behind to front the Underground Resistance name, but for now, let's concentrate on Robert Hood's line of work. In 1994, Robert Hood released his album Minimal Nation, which made him one of the first to create minimal techno music. The overall reception to the album was very positive, and that made Hood quickly run back into the studio to release a second album under Treasure Records called Internal Empire. As to say which one of the records is better, I'll leave that to another review. Let's now focus on Mirror Man, which Robert released in 2020. Mirror Man, the album, starts off with an intro ambient track, and then the races start off on the second track called Nothing Stops Detroit. This song alone can carry the entire album. But with the expertise and years of experience Mr. Hood has, it isn't the only gem on this album. A lot of the song names are foreboding and dark in nature, but the songs themselves are just that, songs that have a hypnotic groove which anyone can appreciate. Fear Not is a repetitive, driven beat with a haunting woman's wail. Black Mirror follows with a ghoulish sounding synth sound with sounds of seagulls in the distance. It is a more mellow song which goes on for much too long. It could have ended after 2 minutes, but is stretched to over 5 minutes. Falling Apart then kicks in with a massive kick drum and a percussive explosion with deliciously tasting synth sounds. Run Bobby Run is the sixth song off the album and has a hard-hitting beat and is, in my mind, okay. Freeze starts with some interesting glitch sounds and repeats itself throughout. It is one of them interlude songs that come and go, and before you know it, we're listening to A System of Mirrors, which starts off direct and hard-hitting, a lonely synth repeating itself above the kick drum, and soon a percussive loop appears above all the sounds, overtaking and dominating the overall song. This song is actually pretty good. It builds and falls apart many times within the song itself, gradually adding and subtracting different sounds, making the song itself very interesting to listen to. The volume itself increases as the build of sounds are overlaid on top of each other. Next is Face in the Water. Another foreboding, sinister track name. The progression of this track is quite good. It keeps your attention with different types of sounds constantly coming and going. Dare I say, some of the synths sound like dripping water onto a metal structure. The Shattered Image is another interlude which could be or not be on the album. It wouldn't matter much if it was taken off entirely. Ignite a War starts with a hard beat immediately and is the bomb as the song gradually invites more and more percussive beats. The song Another Must Listen, and it is very well constructed. The percussions and drum kick beats complement each other well on this track. Prism comes next with a loopy synth vibe right off the bat, and then a voice that has been created into a loop joins in. 7 Mile Dog comes in with a very interesting and familiar breakbeat. Then some very condensed hi-hats form together to create an enjoyable hi-hat beat. Strings come in and deepen the effect of falling down the rabbit hole. This song is a highlight of the album for sure. And then to end the album, there is The Cure, which is another great song with inventive breakbeats and very high hats coming in with all too familiar breakbeat, or so let's see. So The Cure, which is another great song with inventive breakbeats and very high hats coming in with an all too familiar drum break, which is overtaken by a chirping hi-hat. All going off in unison and creating a wholesome breakbeat track that anyone could dance or get hypnotized to. So as far as the album goes, I mean, as a cohesive whole, I think that it's not cohesively, it doesn't flow together well. There's like really good, hard-hitting tracks that are, that can really stand the test of time and actually, they can be listened to by themselves, and you can skip the interludes. The interludes, in my opinion, are like just not even needed in the album. But so I mean, the tracks that I personally like the most are, first of all, the one of the best tracks on the album is the second track, which is let's see, what was it? Detroit Stop. Nothing Stops Detroit. That song is, my gosh, that's a really good song. Without further debate, it's just the best. And then also, I do like A System of Mirrors. That's a good song too. Ignite a War, despite the I don't like the track name, but the actual song is really well done. 7 Mile Dog is a very good ending track at the end of the album. And of course, The Cure, the very last song, is very good as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 solid tracks on this album that are, without a doubt, really good. And then there's the interludes, which I said are in my opinion, not needed on the album. They could be on the album, or they can not be on the album. I could care less. It would not. It's just those interludes are sometimes too much, but in my opinion, this is it has some very strong tracks on the album, but the cohesive whole, as of listening to the album from beginning to end, it just doesn't mend together as much as some of his other albums, like for instance Internal Empire. Those songs that are on that album, they just cohesively, you can listen to Internal Empire from beginning to end, and it just works. You just love it. And then that's why I like Internal Empire more than Minimal Nation, because Minimal Nation has there's like this one track that is repeated on the album, and I don't like it when artists use one song more than once on the album. I like it when all the songs are different, but I do like remixes, but Minimal Nation is definitely there. Minimal Nation is the first album that he put out, and a lot of people were blown away by it, because it was in many ways the first techno album that was dubbed minimal techno. But Robert Hood knew right away that he had a really big hit with his Minimal Nation album, and so he went straight into the studio to put out a second album, which is actually more minimal techno-ish than his first attempt at minimal techno, which was the Minimal Nation. And out of that second studio attempt came his Internal Empire, which was released on Treasure Records, and it is absolutely it's a gem altogether. And so when you compare this new album with those two albums, it doesn't flow as well together. But with that said, there's some absolutely wonderful tracks on this album. For instance, Nothing Stops Detroit. I mean, I could listen to that song over and over, and I wouldn't get sick of it. It's just a classic, bona fide classic, right? So, as far as giving this a ranking, 1 to 10, I would probably give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. I would have probably given it a 9, but the fact that when you listen to it from beginning to end, it doesn't flow well. So I docked it a little and gave it a 8.5, which is still good, 8.5 out of 10. But what can I say? I have a huge respect for Robert Hood. He's been at it from the very beginning. He's been making techno music since the early 90s, and he definitely knows what makes a good techno track, right? He definitely knows those loops and how to make very hypnotic and good sounding loops that will really do well on the dance floor or in the car when you're listening to it when you're driving around late at night, through a city with neon lights. So, yeah, I mean, you should definitely, without hesitation, you should definitely hear his new album, and you will definitely find that his some of these songs are just totally top notch. They're the creme de la creme. They're the best. You know, he doesn't he kind of makes his music and doesn't follow fads or follow the crowd. He is kind of a trendsetter, as you might say. He's the one that leads the crowd into a different style of techno music and minimal techno. I mean, of course, there's other artists that have dabbled with minimal techno, especially Richie Houghton with Plastic Man. But although I think that the credit should go to Robert Hood for creating or spearheading the movement of minimal techno, and of course Richie Houghton from Canada is up there, right up there with Robert Hood. But I think the credit should definitely go to Robert Hood for creating the sound and propelling it forward for others to appreciate and emulate. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I did type it up and I kind of read it to you. And I hope you were able to follow along and hope you liked it. And please give me a like, give me a comment down below. And I did put out a little on the community tab. I put out what albums or what artists you would like to listen to next, and one of the options was Robert Hood, and I noticed that whoever voted, the first person that voted selected Robert Hood, and then there was a second person that voted, and they picked Luke Vibert, which is an English electronic acid techno producer that grew up in Cornwall, and so in the same area like Affix twin Affix twin, and so I will be reviewing next Luke Vibert's one of his albums, and because I noticed that someone did vote that they would like for me to review Luke Vibert, so I'll go ahead and review that next. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time in the review when I review Luke Vibert. Appreciate you listening, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye.